Cheers. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm Cody, as you all know, and this is Ben Nolting, the racer of the 065 numbered bike in the Best in the Desert racing series. So essentially what we're going to be doing with these videos is post-race, we're going to sit down, have a little chat, an AAR of sorts, which stands for After Action Report. We would do these all the time after we'd go to the field or have some type of exercise in the military. We were both in the Army, so forgive us if we use any acronyms or anything that you guys don't quite understand, just ask. I'll answer in the comments down below. And for this AAR, we're going to be focusing on the Parker 250, which was in Parker, Arizona, and it occurred in January. I'll put the dates in here. I can't remember exactly. I'm way behind on getting these videos up. But if you guys want future content like this, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. We'll try to get these up a little bit more punctually in the future after our next races. So we are G&N Racing. It stands for Laughlin NV Racing, obviously, or not. But here's the Nolting. Nolting is the racer. Ben, say hi to everyone, and welcome to the first, I guess, co-experience on the channel. Yeah. So this is the first time I've had someone else really talking and interacting with me, and I'm not just talking to myself in an awkward, weird motion, or to you, the viewers. So I'm working in the pits. I'm doing the pit crew thing and kind of media associated with the team, and then Ben, he stays not hurt and able to race and does practicing and all that good jazz. So I'm good, but if he gets hurt, then we're boned anyway. So there'll be a good video on that if it ever happens. Knock on wood that it doesn't. We're 30 years young, so we're right in that age where we've got just enough risk aversion to not do that, hopefully. But we'll get more into that later in this video. First, I want to talk about getting out to Parker, Arizona. It was a
drive. It was about 13 hours drive. Yeah.
It might have been longer than that because we ran into about 3 hours of snow getting up to the Eisenhower Tunnel on 70, coming from Denver. As you're traveling west on 70 down to Silverthorne, I think we hit 3 to 10 inches of snow eventually by the time we got down there. So.
Luckily, we weren't pulling a trailer or anything like that.
The viewers, I know all about this. I was there.
Not pulling a trailer. We're just working out of the bed of the truck. So yeah, it was blizzard conditions. Completely sideways with winds, blowing snow. It was bounced between 15 and 10, 8, 7 degrees.
Yeah,
really cold. Really
all of the degrees below 20.
Below 20.
It was pretty chilly, and we got a lot of snow. I mean, you guys, as the videos that are popping up is kind of a chronicling of our journey at the Parker 250, getting to it and coming home. But it was I thought it was a pretty nice drive out, but I didn't drive to Parker. Ben took the whole way there, so that was kind of nice of him. But once we got out of the snow, West Colorado is really kind of boring, and so is Utah.
It's a really nice drive. It's pretty flat. Speed limit gets up to 80 miles an hour at some points, so you're able to cruise control at 80, not above, of course. Really just get out there and put some miles on the tires. It's a nice drive. I mean, it's like 13 hours of pure driving without stops, but it's not. I'd rather be doing that than a lot of other places.
He says 13 hours. It took us 13 hours to get to Vegas.
True.
And that's usually like a 9-10 hour drive. So we did have some slowdowns. Our little bladders, we pee every 2 hours. So that's a fault of ours. I'm sure some of you experience the same thing. But one thing I really wanted to talk about was it doesn't take a whole lot, if you've already got some of the equipment. So Ben already had the bike, which is a KTM 250 XCF, right?
XCF,
2020?
2021 KTM 250 XCF. And I mean, it was purchased for desert racing. There's all different types of dirt bikes out there. There's enduro bikes, there's supercross bikes, there's all different stuff. But specifically, KTM is, or Husqvarna, same thing. They're known for their off-road racing ability, right? That's what they shine in these areas. Along with Honda. Honda's out there winning podiums every single race in the Score Series.
For now.
For now.
We're not, whoa, Honda, whoa.
Well,
I love it. It's the best island ever for motocross, or well, anything with a motor, really.
anything with a motor.
I'm a fanboy.
So, I mean, like I said, I purchased this specifically for desert racing. I grew up doing all kinds of motor activities. Both of my older brothers raced very competitively. So I grew up around it. KTM's a very reputable brand. So yeah, 2001 KTM XCF 250. That's what currently we have. That's what we currently are running. We see a 450 in the future, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, that's a little further down the road. But so this is the race bike, motorcycle. Can you tell us a little bit about the series that you are racing in?
Right. So Best in the Desert is like we've said 10 times, the best, or it's a desert racing experience. What it means is it's a long forum off-road racing style. Most people are familiar with the Baja 1000. If you know anything about desert racing, this is all done in America, in the United States.
And that's the Best in the Desert series, right?
No, the Baja 1000 is what's known as the Score Series, and then Best in the Desert is a complete other series. So,
but it's just in the States.
Just in the States.
Okay.
So the Score Series is all done in Mexico or south of the border, south of the United States border, and then the Best in the Desert is all done pretty much in the southwest United States, Nevada, Utah, Arizona.
Cool. Yeah, so that's the bike. It's real basic. It's all stock. We did upgrade the rear spring. Separate video about that, but he's not a little boy.
Yeah.
So you can't be riding around with a little boy spring on the rear suspension. It's a little squishy. But another video about that. So that's really the only thing that's not stock on the bike, and obviously the number graphics for the series. So with that being said, all of this, it fits in the bed of a F250 6.5 foot bed.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a couple totes of spare parts, lubricant, filters, things we would need regularly at the track. A set of tires and tools, really. That's all we went into this first race with. It was our first race as a team.
Yep.
We learned a lot. Really, just the pacing and what we would need to bring along with us.
Yeah.
To be successful in the future. Because really, it took us a long time to get there. We didn't utilize our time as wisely as we could have, and as we will in the future, as far as getting down there, getting set up. And we were not cost efficient that first race. So in the future, we're working on some things for that. Mm-hmm. We've kind of learned how the series works, as far as like where it's hosted, what hotels, what we need to do. We have some other things happening in the future that we'll get into later in this video. But the next thing I wanted to get into is, once we got to the race area, to Parker, Arizona, we stayed in an Airbnb, which
was awesome.
It was totally awesome.
Yeah.
It was like taking a vacation, right? But that's where your expenses come in. If you're another person looking to start a race team, or even go out there and race on your own, it will be expensive, because of, I guess you've got people coming out to watch the race, spectators. You've got the other racers, because you're not only there with other motorcycles, you're there with quads, mm-hmm. UTVs, and then the pre-running for the trophy trucks. If you want to save some money, plan to camp, and that's kind of what we're going to be doing in the future. But it's not just motorcycles. Everybody that's everybody in Best in the Desert is going to be out there every weekend.
Absolutely. They have huge names out there. Travis Pastrana has raced before. Ken Block. I mean, just absolute massive names in the off-road industry race these series. That's what they use to get ready for the Baja series. They make sure they go out there and they make sure that their bikes or their side-by-sides or their trophy trucks or rally cars or whatever the heck they're racing, this is where they go to do a lot of their testing, and they do it to race as well. But it's it's not a little series. The trophy trucks weren't out there. The trophy trucks and the cars weren't out there this weekend or that particular weekend. They were racing the weekend after.
Yeah. And that was Park 425 for the big boys.
Yep.
But our pacing, or I guess our order of operations once we got out there, we set up in the Airbnb.
Yep.
Pulled the bike out, did a once over from traveling. We had we don't know what's gonna break. We don't really know. We ran it. Ben took a few, I don't want to say hot laps because it wasn't on the race course, but it was off in some BLM land near where we were staying, and some footage will be coming up of that. But just basically shaking down the bike, making sure everything made the trip okay, and that it was set up the way we wanted. We didn't really, for this race, we didn't really want to change a lot of stuff because we didn't, we have no baseline to operate off of. Now that we have a baseline with this race, we'll be able to, things like the spring. Yep. We're able to change, one or two things at a time, get things dialed in the way, he needs to be successful down the road, because we're one race a month, right?
Yeah, well, one race a month. Yeah.
So Parker 250 was in January. Mm-hmm. We've got the UTV Champion Race of Champions in Laughlin, Nevada this month.
Yep.
Which is February 2022.
So
that's coming up in 2 weeks. The next thing is we get back to the Airbnb and we did a once over on the bike again, right? I'm basically going through and just making sure that I have all the tools I need in the pits. Let me caveat this first. The pits, he was only going to see me once every 128 miles. Mm-hmm. So, which is in the Best in the Desert series. That's not a normal thing. Normally, you run a lap style. This is the first time in years that they've run these very long laps. So it was 250 miles, 128 miles per lap, and there's no chase trucks. So a lot of these Baja style races, there's chase trucks, right? You crash, you blow a tire out, you run out of fuel, you mess up your clutch, you just anything, right? You're allowed to jump in in our most riders, dirt bike riders, have a side by side or some type of chase vehicle or jump in, chase down the rider. We're hooked up with GPSs. You can see a GPS up here on the front of the bike. Well, it's on the front.
It's on the front. There's a GPS up there. I specifically run another Garmin in my backpack so that I have access to talking to the pit crew. It's very crucial that I can do that. But you can't chase the bike in the Best in the Desert series. It's just pits, which is,
and these pits, they're set up in a way that it's not so far that he's not going to make it unless he falls off the bike, crashes the bike, something breaks, blows a tire, anything like that. That's the only reason he wouldn't make it to these pits. Or we totally underestimate how much fuel you use. Which, for us, I don't think it's going to be a big issue as long as we just put fuel in every pit and leave it there, right? So, so we're essentially at the Airbnb just getting ready. Nervous. Well, I know. Well, he had nerves. I'm just like, well, screw it. I'm going to work on the bike if something's broke, and if it's catastrophically broke, like the frame breaks, or well, he'd probably be dead. But
you break a frame,
you hit him pretty hard. You're gonna break that coccyx. But really, prepping, we didn't. Other than him going out and practicing, we didn't do a whole lot. I tinkered on the bike some beforehand, and then the weeks leading up to it, so I wasn't unfamiliar. But a relatively new bike, nothing was gonna break unless it was gonna break. Yeah. So there wasn't that much prep going into it as far as the bike or the rider, right? Like you did some practice runs out here in the mountains, but that's really it. We had some spare parts, some bench stock, like air filters, fuel filter, oil filters,
yeah.
tires, and fuel. That's really all we came out there with. The bike did great. It did finish somewhat. But yeah, it wasn't bad. It really, leading up, it wasn't bad. Morning of the race though, now we're getting into the drama. So coming into the race, after the driver's meeting, we're like, holy shit. What was it, 7? They wanted us out there at 7.
Yeah.
It was like a 30-minute drive. So we're up at like 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock, whatever. But you're up early. You're like, oh man, I hope everything's ready. Hope everything, loading it up the night before. Hope everything's ready in the truck. Like, not forgetting something out there at the pits before he takes off. So we get out there, and how did it feel for you?
Oof. A lot. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns about off-road, dirt bike racing. And then being in my first race, a lot of nerves. I don't know. There's a lot of things that flash through my mind of going wrong. If the bike breaks, how am I going to get parts? If I'm somewhere, where a vehicle can't get to me or something like that. If I crash and I break my wrist, and how am I going to recover myself and stuff?
That's
like that.
called foreshadowing.
And there's a lot of unknowns, and it's but that's part of that's part of desert racing. It's exciting, it's nerve-wracking, but yeah, there was some some turbulence going on. So a lot of nerves. It's desert racing. There's a lot of unknowns. And I knew there was going to be unknowns going into it. We tried to prepare my pack as much as we can. I don't know if that's in frame, but we have, I have a generic Camelback. It carries 4 liters of water.
This is 2.5.
2.5 liter?
Yeah, 2.5 liters.
There's a couple bladders that we run. So
basically, just a Camelback, right?
Right. And this is the backpack version. I do
light.
also have a like a fanny pack almost version. So we put some tools in there that I could use. Like, we were really worried about the handlebars. We were having, some handlebar issues to where it was wanting to rotate a lot more than it should have. There's some handlebar extenders. I'm 6'3", so there's some handlebar extenders on here. So when I stand on the foot pegs, I'm really tall up here. So there's some handlebar extenders. So they were wanting to rotate backwards in here.
What he's essentially saying is, I forgot Loctite.
So, it's that's the thing of the unknown of the desert racing. This team got started by me wanting to pursue this as a dream of mine. I grew up in Southern Arizona. Off-road racing is absolutely massive there. It's such a huge part of the Southern Arizona life. So I wanted to do this. I've been blessed with a great job and awesome friends and stuff like that. So I was able to do this. So I wanted to pursue it. I'm not mechanically inclined in the slightest. I can change oil. I can take the bike to the shop and get it fixed. Is what I can do. So I needed somebody that was mechanically inclined, that can pull out a clutch, that can re-ring up. I don't even know. These are words that I don't even know. They can change the flux capacitor, they can do all that stuff. So Cody offered to help me, and so that took a lot of weight off my back, because that's a big worry. But it's no fault of Cody. It's a lot to prep a bike. So a lot of unknowns, but so we
take a breath.
No, it's all right, but it was just a lot of unknowns. So going into it, I was worried about the handlebars, and I was worried about a lot of that stuff, So yeah, that's how I felt. I was not extremely nervous. I knew it was about to happen, but yeah, little did I know.
So essentially, nerves were nuts, right? Like,
yeah.
You can see, like, it's not, I don't know, it's like going up, I don't know, people who got kids and their kids are like freaking out because they got like a dance recital or something. But yeah, doing things outside of your normal, your operating space can be pretty terrifying. Like, I mean, yeah, I was nervous too. I'm like, shit, man, hopefully don't fucking die. 10 miles out, we're like, how do we get there? All right, well, we'll take the truck. But fortunately, Best in the Desert, they do have a lot of medical support personnel, and they're really well staffed out there. So that was not really actually a worry, but it does sit in the back of your mind. So, starting the race, actually, you know what? We got to the pits, we were setting up, we got the bike out. I mean, it starts on the first crank. Like, it's not, we're like, wait, is there more to do, right? There really wasn't. We set up a tent, one of the sunshades, and that's really, really it. Like, I piddled around with tools for a little bit, got them like where I think I would need them, had my tools set up for when he came in, in 3.5 to 4.5 hours after 128 miles, because I can't be at every pit that quickly, and who knows how fast he's going to go, right? So I think the first section of the race before you get to the first pit was like 40 miles.
Yeah, so
it was way, way back in BLM land.
So yeah, there's 4 pits. There's the main pit. Each one of the pits has got a random name, but basically pit 1, pit 2, pit 3. They're anywhere between 40, or I should say anywhere between 20 and 50 miles apart. So you really have to plan for those.
Yeah, and we were using a service called Baja Pits, right? These are guys that show up to most of these Best in the Desert races that are kind of that longer format, that aren't super short laps.
Yep.
Like, for example, the UTV Championships.
Yeah, UTV Legends Championship.
That's going to be like an 18-mile
loop.
So they're not really needed. Like, the bikes, they're going to make 18 miles. The vehicles are going to make 18 miles before they need fuel. Like, we can get like 50 miles out of a tank almost.
This is the stock tank. So this is it's like a little over 8 liters. So
2.8 or 2.9
gallons. So
yes.
I think it's just a little over, whatever.
Yeah.
So 8 liters, 8 and some change liters. So not a ton of fuel, but enough to get some mileage out of them. Right?
Yeah. So we set up this thing with Baja Pits, so they'd have fuel at every pit for us.
Yep.
Right. So you just leave them in your 5-gallon jug.
Yep.
And as you go, when you roll up, they'll fill up your bike for you. So that's a saving grace. Like, and if you're catastrophically damaged, I'm sure they would help coordinate a pickup, or somebody coming from the pits to come pick up the bike if it was actually broken. So that's nice, and it's not too expensive if you supply your own fuel. It's like what, $100?
Yeah, it was $100.
Yeah.
$100. We brought jerry cans. They're not jerry cans, but they're made by Jerry Can.
Yeah.
5-gallon.
Those standard race fuel cans, right?
Yeah.
Like, cars use them, bikes use them. It's for everything. They sit well. They ride well in the truck. So, boom, pit set up. We're ready to go. Now we're just kind of waiting, and the sun's coming up. So we're like, oh, thank you. It's like 6:30, and the sun's actually coming up, and we're like, all right, time to stage at 7. So as we moved up the staging line, we had no idea what was going on, right? We missed the driver's meeting up. So, whatever.
Not unintentionally, but we did miss it. Yeah.
So on the border of California and Arizona, you have got to manually set your phones to Arizona time, because it will, like, right there on that river, it will switch back and forth every time you get close or far enough away from a tower. So just manually set your times to Arizona time if you're in Page, Arizona, so you can show up to a driver's meeting or date, whatever you've got going on. But yeah, we missed the driver's meeting. We caught the last 5 or 10 minutes of it, and they're telling Ben, like, oh yeah, 065, like, oh, you're racer 65,
yeah,
right?
Your position 65 or something like that.
And we're like, oh, cool. Show up the next morning, and we're like, what are these numbers on the ground mean, right? Like 1 through 100. Well, that's your, now we know
your pole. It's your, I guess, pole position.
Your staging.
Your staging.
Like your staging number, because letting one guy go, waiting a minute, and letting another guy go. I don't even know where the start line is, right? So I figured, like, oh, this is kind of the start. Like, they're gonna bring him up there and then let him go, release them. Were you feeling good at that point, or were you just like, all right, I'm on the bike, ready to go? And
so
let's get this started.
Going into this race, my thing was not like, oh, I'm gonna I'm going to be first. I'm going to be second. Like, I was just like, I just want to finish. That's it. I just want the bike to survive. I want me to survive. I want everybody to have a decent time, right? Half of it is having fun. But what Cody didn't mention is while we were running the bike, we had a professional race team to our left.
There were multiple professional race teams all around us. We just kind of pretended like we knew what the fuck we were doing.
And we're not talking like guys that did this for a living. I'm talking full 18-wheel setups, full box trailers. I mean, like Honda,
multiple toter homes,
Red Bull, I mean factory teams. And these guys sitting next to us were scaring the shit out of me. Like, so going to the starting line, those guys are in their own category. They're in the pro category. They go first off the line. They were really far away from me. So going to the line was very settling because I was back with guys that were ragtag, right? I had seen them come in U-Haul trailers and stuff like that.
So basically, the way it's set up is they have the pros, the experienced, and then the amateur racers.
Amateur racers,
right?
Or they call it open,
Yeah. So that the back portion of the class is where a lot of the riders were, the racers, and the way it was set up, is you've got a 15-year-old behind you, who's
probably
like, you're
1,000 times better than me.
Crap, this dude's racing. So and in his class, like the amateur or the open amateur Ironman, which is just him. Like if I could ride, I would be a second driver or racer, but
that's what Ironman means.
I can't. He has to do every race by himself on this bike, and he's got to do what he can do. So the only support he gets is from the pits and any of the pits. So I can imagine what that felt like. I know I was nervous, and I'm just standing there like, shit, I hope nothing breaks that we don't have.
Yeah. And that's
hopefully,
and that's
it
why
doesn't break out there, because I'm like, we could have put more in that bag.
Yeah.
But it's heavy.
Yeah. But it's heavy, right? So then you get fatigued on the rides. But I can't stress enough that, having people a part of your team or your community or whatever you're doing that you trust is very important. I've known Cody since 2014. We served together. We've done a lot of things together where I knew that.
Shit, boy.
Yeah, we've been through a lot of stuff together. And having somebody in the pits in the back that, if I did crash or something like that it would be, there was no doubt in my mind that he was going to half-ass getting to me, making sure that I was done. And, so while there was unknowns, it helps having somebody in the pits on your, on your side. So it really helps.
Essentially, guys, unless you're that 65-year-old that shows up to these Ironman races and does the whole thing himself, and he's like, oh man, it's just another weekend,
Who's been doing it for 40 years.
Yeah. Have a support system.
Absolutely.
One person, I might not be enough eventually after a few races.
Yeah.
Because that, it's going to happen. Something's going to happen where I can't show up, and he's like, well, shit, I'm already signed up for the race. But make sure you're networking and talking with these other teams, because even the pro teams next to us, they were the most approachable people ever.
They actually asked us for parts at one point. I'm not bragging about that.
Who was it?
Remember they needed starter fluid and something else.
Oh yes. So that's what racing's all about. You've got to help each other. Right?
If they would have asked us for anything,
your competitors. Your competitors once the race starts, but how are you supposed to compete if they can't even get their car or bike going? But everybody was awesome. Even some of these big race teams, I'm sure if we would have walked up and asked and been like, hey, we need help with this, or does somebody have 5 minutes to help us do something? We've got to replace this, and we don't have a 32 millimeter rear axle in that socket, which we didn't have. So we were gonna we were gonna use an adjustable crescent wrench, right?
That's what we had though.
But I'm sure if I'm like, guys, can you all help me to the team to the left or right? They would have been there for sure.
Absolutely.
So next, we sorry for that caveat, but we spent a lot of time on that. But getting into the actual race starting, and this is going to be a complicated thing to show, because one, I don't fly the drone yet. Two, I didn't know where the starting point was, so I couldn't get any video of the guy starting. And in my mind, I'm thinking like, oh, 128 miles, like, okay, that's 2 hours, 2.5 hours, but no, it's way longer. It's rough out there. So take us through the starting line, actually taking off, what it was like out there, and then after that, we'll get into coming in for the first lap.
So we got from the starting line, and it's a stadium style, I guess. So there's there's a big Red Bull inflatable arch that you go underneath, and you start there, and there's Best in the Desert organizers that will tell you. They say, hey, you have 30 seconds, you have 10 seconds, you have 5 seconds, go. So you take off the line and you kind of go back and forth, you kind of cut back and forth, but there's people watching you. I mean, and I don't know how many people are out there, but it seemed like a lot. Of course, you're doing something competitively, so there was probably 2 people out there watching me, but it felt like 100. So we take off from the line, and I start going, and it's 128 miles, so I'm trying to pace myself. It is the first probably about 8 to 10 miles. It was some of the roughest riding I have ever been on. I mean, we're talking boulders, we're talking really hard rocks, a lot of tighter turns, stuff that I did not prepare for. I was not expecting this type of riding. Growing up, we had power line roads or gas pipe roads where it's fairly flat and you just go, right? You have turns here and there, but you just go. It's basically the person that can go the fastest, the longest. So get off the line, I'm having trouble from the get-go. It's not something that I prepared for in the racing. And then it finally levels out, and I'm finally able to kind of gain speed. I pass one driver or rider, I pass another rider, and I'm starting to gain more and more and more. I get to before the first pits, and I end up getting a little too confident from passing riders, and I blow over a berm. The berms, basically the swooping berms in the race, are just sand. It's just basically the Best in the Desert guys have gone out there and pushed up some sand. It's not professional packed dirt. It's just in Arizona we have these things called washes. It's basically just very large pebble, sand. Blew through a corner, being stupid and not pacing myself more. Blew through a corner, ended up flying off the bike and hurting my wrist pretty bad. So from there, that was pretty much the end of the race. So the bike looks really fine right now. We've done some stuff to it to kind of repair. We took care of the handlebars, we took care of the graphics, but it tweaked the bike a little bit. It ended up hurting my wrist pretty bad to where I could not, I was clutching I was not clutching as much as I should have been, clutching is very important when it comes into corners and stuff like that, but blew through the berm, being stupid and naive too. I still had, oh my gosh, I probably still had 90 miles left in that lap. Blew through the corner like an idiot, going way too fast, being too gung-ho about being the first rider. All of my pre-race, like, oh, just finish. You just need to get across the line. Who cares if you're the last person? All of that just faded away. I came off the line, was going too fast, blew through it. Blew through the berm or the corner, hurt myself, and it was a miserable rest of the race. Absolutely miserable.
The good thing about Best in the Desert is if you complete that lap, you're in the points.
Yep.
You're not first, because obviously there's guys that'll finish both laps within that allotted time, and that they'll be higher points. But we ended with 63 points.
Yep.
For the team.
Yep.
And just one lap. Yeah, he sucked it up. Fortunately, his wrist is fine. So
got it looked at. It's not broken. Obviously I sprained it pretty bad. When I say it was this big, I'm not joking.
He got off the bike and you could see the glove tight around the wrist and everything. But I guess the forethought into that is like, just know that you've got to take a breath, slow down, smooth as fast. you know, don't get overexcited, because at the end of the day, the first thing that's going to break is him, or the racer, or the human flesh and bone and blood. That's going to spill first before, you know, the steel frame of the bike breaks, or the handlebars bend. Like, you've got to take care of yourself. And when he came in, I'm thinking like, boom, he's off the bike, go to work.
And that's exactly what I did. You know, I pulled in. I was super lucky to have my father there as well. He's very mechanically inclined. Between Cody and my dad, I don't think there's anything in the world that cannot be taken apart and put back together. You know, I pull into the pits. This is like 4 hours after. You know, it took me, you know, there's some of the pro riders that did the entire race, all 250 miles in 3 hours. It took me 4 hours to complete my first lap. I pull into the pit. They get the bike, you know, I get off the bike. You know, at this point, I don't even have to hold my bike up. I literally I think I was off the bike before somebody was even holding it up. I was off the bike, I was ready to be off the bike. You know, they have it on the stand, and I just had to be like, I'm done. Like, my wrist hurt so bad. You know, it was really swollen. I couldn't really pull the clutch in successfully. You know, I could pull in the clutch, but, you know, because it wasn't completely grabbing.
So really, the only thing that failed was his left hand.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I assessed the bike, and I'm like, oh, you crashed? And like, there's nothing wrong. I think you got some like scrapes.
We got some scrapes.
That's it.
We did put some damage on, but I mean, if you look at the pipe, you can see where I laid it over right here. There's burn marks from my pants. If you were to see my pants, there's a pretty good sized sear mark where I laid it over my leg.
But really, after 128 miles, like, the back tire's good.
Yep.
Like, we're not going to change anything for the next race because the bike held up. It was just him, right? So you got to take care of yourself as a racer, and even you just can't. Don't be overzealous. Do what you can afford.
Do what you can
to
handle,
lose.
And I could not. Yeah, exactly.
So that we ended up calling it, right? Like, you weren't going to continue. So I went and talked to the pit boss, or, you know, whatever they call it there, but, you know, and notified them that he wasn't going to be going back on the course, because I don't think it was quite done at that time yet. The first riders coming in had not completed the whole 250. I think. Actually, maybe the pro class might have. Anyway, we packed up. Like, he changed out his gear. We loaded the bike up, got the truck loaded up with all the tools and stuff, and kind of was like, you know, see ya. Because we've got UTVs that are starting to stage by, like, I think it was like 12:30 in the morning. They were starting to stage. So you've got 100 UTVs coming up to start lining up in their staging positions. So we kind of just picked up and got out of there. Didn't know if he was going to die, or, you know, if a hand was going to fall off or what. But realistically, like, we went back and chilled. Like, we kind of just
got back to the Airbnb.
Yeah.
Relaxed a little bit.
And your family was there. Like,
yeah,
mom and dad.
Daughter.
Wife. They were there. So we didn't have to cook or do
it was awesome.
That's our privilege, you know.
This
strong support system, you know what we're saying?
But we wanted, you know, I wanted that going into the first race. You know, I think I knew it was going to be a lot of stress, of jitters of being the first race and the unknown and all that good stuff. So I invited my parents out. My dad is ecstatic that I'm doing this. If he doesn't come out for every single race, I'll be surprised. He's really supportive. I'm super happy that he is. I don't know. It was nice to have my parents out there. My mom is a fantastic cook.
We had meals made. Like, we didn't have to do a whole lot to sustain ourselves. It's going to be different going in the future, just because I think it's easier to, like, prioritize and execute. Here's what we've got to do, and then boom, run down our list. Like, even if we're eating Vienna sausages out of a can, but that's going to be more efficient and, like,
but we're used to
productive for us, right? Like, so we're used to, like, austere environments. We're used to being able to be like, all right, look, we got a job to do, and if we can stay in that we've got a job to do mindset, I think in the long run, you know, at least through this season. Next season, maybe we relax a little bit, change our lifestyle up a little bit while we're out on the road.
Yeah.
But this season, if we really lock it up and focus and treat it as a job, it's going to be like, it will be so much more successful than even what we were for the first race, for having zero experience, not knowing what we were doing, having nerves, being ill prepared, but still being prepared enough to adapt to what we needed to do if something happened, right? And that was probably the hardest first race, I think. It's an extremely difficult course for Ironman.
Yeah,
because you know,
it gave me a lot of confidence knowing that I had actually made one lap in the Ironman amateur class. I think there was
made points.
There was, I think, 8 people total, and of those 8, I think 10
total racers, 2 DNFs, and we got 8th overall due to time, but we were only, I think, 20 minutes off. I'll put up the final standings in the video, but he was not far off from being higher in the rankings. And if these people don't show up to the next race, and we do every race this season, well, we're in the points.
And that's what we're going for. Is we're not going for first place in every single event. We're going for consistency, right? Yeah. So if you look at the points, there's there may be 40 different racers from my class, but they show up 2 races a year or 3 races a year. We're really trying to go for every single. We're trying to go to every single race,
except for the one in California.
Yeah, we're not going to that. We're going to race. We're going to race a different. But seriously though, we are not going to that race because we don't want to deal with those restrictions. Whether you agree with it or not, it is what it is. Yeah. But we're not going to do that. We're going to be racing something else in the month of March. We race in the Mint 400. Obviously, that's not a hard decision.
Yeah,
it's one of the biggest off-road races in the world, really.
I'm gonna get some autographs.
Yeah,
maybe.
But we went into this season with the attitude of every single race we're going to be there, or die trying. I shouldn't say that.
Well, we're not going to die trying, but it just so happens that we are able to. We have those weekends off.
Yeah,
we're able to take Thursday and Friday off with our corresponding company's PTO policy. So we're gonna get to these races. Our wives are supportive.
Very supportive.
At least, at face value, right? They say that they're good with this, but I guess we'll find out real quick if they're not into a couple races down the road.
I mean, it's not cheap. This is not being braggadocious or elitist. Like, it's not cheap to run these races, and my credit cards haven't been canceled yet. So,
well, yeah. So for you, I honestly, after that first one, we did it the expensive way.
For sure.
But we stayed in Vegas 2 nights, on the way into Page and then on the way out, which we'll get to in a second. But it can be done on a very small budget. If you have already got a bike and you're confident in your equipment, you can go out there with a Ford fucking Ranger and basically your bike and fuel. That's it. It's just going to cost and camp out there at the pits because they do have free camping at the pits for Best in the Desert, which is awesome. Which we will be doing in the future.
We did see a guy he had an F-150, a light duty truck. He was had a sleeping bag and a sleeping mat in the back of his truck. Yep. He had his bike on the stand and he was doing it like skin and bones. I respect that man. How
we should have done it and we won't do it that austere, but you can do it. This is for everyone. If you've already got the equipment, if you already ride a dirt bike, this is something that's accessible for you. Something I would like to do before we get into the drive home and our last subject, which will be team updates, is how much does registration cost for Best in the Desert, and is it truly affordable? Is it an arm and a leg to actually get entry into one of these races, or what?
So there's as far as the registration goes, it's there's 3 fees that go into every single race. There's the actual registration of the bike. I should say 2, but 3 for your first race. So there's the registration, which runs over right around $350 for the Ironman amateur class. Every single class costs something different. So if you're starting out and you're in the amateur class, it's going to run you between $300 and $400. So you have to purchase one of these transponders.
And guys, this is a quick overview. This isn't like a how-to. We will I think in one of these next races we'll actually go through
get an
all
Excel
this.
spreadsheet.
Like this is the cost of doing it. This is what you've got to do, and this is the equipment that ends up being required for these races. So we'll get into that.
Yeah, I mean it's not cheap, several $100s, but it's not thousands of dollars. But $300 to $400 for the registration. You have to pay for one of these transponders. They're good for 2 years. They're $100. So for our first 2 seasons, we won't have to worry about that. And then you have another tracker. It's called Race Tracks. It's a mandatory tracker that you have to subscribe to. And I say subscribe to is because you purchase. You pay a fee. They give you a transponder. You use it for the race, and then it goes back to the company. And it's $150, $160 for the tracker. So it's so 4, 5, 6, 7. It's about $700 a race. For the first race, it goes down about $100 because of the transponder. But I will say, in desert racing, it is important to have the tracker. So, like I said, I run 2 trackers. I run a Garmin device, and then I run the racing tracks. Cody is able to communicate with me.
That's a huge thing. It's like it missed the Wi-Fi signal. You can go to the racing tracks website and figure.
I think it's actually in there.
Yeah, we'll get into the true equipment used, but like that racing tracks device, you use the Wi-Fi connection from the device to your phone, tablet, or computer.
Both of them.
Yeah, you gotta have 2. You gotta have the race tracker, and then you gotta have the chase tracker, which is cool. So it communicates over GPS, right? That is cool because you can live track where he's at within every 8 minutes, and then if he stopped for 30 minutes, you're like, well, he's probably dead in the desert. But or something's broken out, some type of issue has occurred, and he can also connect his phone. He can connect his phone and shoot me a message and say, "Hey, I'm jacked up." There's an SOS button on the tracker as well.
So this is the tracker that I use currently. It's the
and you'll have to get a little closer because it is a little far away.
I don't know if you can see that. You can Google it. It's the Garmin GPS Map 66i. We do have an inReach subscription that costs monthly on here. I pair this to a cheap iPhone that we have.
An old one. It wasn't cheap at the time,
but
it works.
It's an old phone. I pair the bike tracker and this to it at the same time. We communicate mainly through the racetrack system, but this is a redundant system. Being in the military, we cannot get away from the redundancy. You don't need this. You absolutely do not need this. But in our minds, we do need this.
Yeah, and he can SOS right on there.
Right. So I have an SOS button on here, and this will contact way more than my pit crew.
Yeah.
But I can figure out where I'm at. There's all kinds of features that are built into this. Mainly we use it for the satellite messaging. This is 100% something that you do not need. But unfortunately, we've been brainwashed into thinking.
Take it. Because you're not going to need it until you need it.
Yeah.
But you'll never know when you need it, right?
So,
but in that chance that you do need it,
you're
not going to have it.
So we run, like I said, and this was not cheap in itself, but so we run 2 tracking devices. So the race was about $700 for the first race. And there's many devices like this. The inReach program through Garmin is just a tenth of what's available. There's the Iridium network. Oh my gosh!
It's all over the place. Well, separate video on that.
So that's what we use as far as communication, and that is very important for my pit crew. I say my pit crew, but for Cody, but because we have multiple there, but he runs the pits and stuff like that. So if I'm able, going into it, hey, I'm prepared for a tire. So then he has the tools out and he's ready to go to replace the tire. Replacing a rear tire on your bike's not rocket science, but there's quite a bit of stuff that needs to come off in order to get. And over here we have like an entire set. So sort of stuff like that.
Being able to get that situational awareness is very handy out there.
But so about $700 for your first race. It'll be between $500 and $700 per race.
Yeah, and this depends on the number of racetracks that you get as well. So
yes.
the provided system through Best in the Desert. Getting to, it's imperative because you'll be out someplace where you don't have cell phone signal.
Yep.
Fortunately, we had like Wi-Fi in the truck that I was able to use as a redundant system for that.
Yeah.
But
to stress it, we had triple redundancy. We had the racing tracks, we had the Garmin. We're lucky enough to be able to have vehicles that have the LTE modems in them, so we had triple redundancy. So
and you know what? That's something to be said. Like if you're looking at new trucks and you want to do desert racing or some type of racing, or even just putzing around in the forest roads out in BFE. These vehicles are available, and if you're already in the market for a new truck, get one with that connectivity, right? Like think ahead.
And we're not running like platinums.
Fuck.
Our race truck it's a 2021. I mean, I understand what the market for truck is, but we're running a 2021 Ford F-250 XLT.
And this is his daily driver. This is not like, we bought this vehicle just to go race. Like, no, he drives it to work every day.
And that's how we justified that truck. So I do drive it every single day. But it has the benefit, it's got the diesel in it because we're towing it. About $500 to $700 a race. There's multiple facets on those fees, but that's about what it costs.
And go to the website, go to Best in the Desert website. Everything is super clearly laid out.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, it's not a bunch of Cornell educated individuals, even though there are a lot of doctors. There's a lot of people that you would not expect to be racing in these races. They're there. This is people from every walk of life. For some of them, this racing circuit and scene is their life. So don't be scared. Don't be nervous about it. If that's something you feel like you want to do, sign up for it. Reach out to other teams that are on YouTube or on social media, or even us. Like, get down in the comments, ask us questions if you have them, and we'll help you out. It's a community, right? When you're out there racing, you're not kicking each other's bikes over. You're not sabotaging other UTVs. Like, you're out there for community, and you're out there to have a good time with other people in that same space.
Every single bike that I passed on the racetrack, because people crash, right? People run out of fuel, they pop tires. Yeah. Every single one I passed, it was a question, hey man, what can I do for you? Maybe not every racer does that, but I for sure do that. Hey, what can I do for you? There was a guy that was like, hey, I need this tool. I happen to have it in the bag. I think it was an Allen key. He just needed to do something. I don't really remember. I was able to give him the tool. There was a couple guys that ran out of fuel. I don't carry fuel on my bike. It's not a risk that we take due to the tank size on this. But anyway, it's community. It's absolutely community. We can't stress this enough. It's community.
Yep. Just don't be afraid. To reach out to people. If it's not us and it's someone else, I'm sure they're going to be just as responsive, right? And you might get some different information from different people, but we're all just trying to be helpful. So, with that being said, once we finished the race and we started, we get back on the road again after what seemed like a really short weekend. We stayed in Vegas for a night. That was a hoot.
It was fantastic, yeah.
It was great, but we were both exhausted, and I think we ended up going to bed by like 9:30. So we walked up the strip, walked back down, lost some money, figured out how to get a lot of free beer, which, if you go to any of these Vegas hotels and you're trying to get some beer, you got to go up to the bar with the digital machines, and you got to say, yes, I'm gambling, and figure out how to play some fucking, excuse my language, figure out how to play some roulette, and just spend 25 cents at a time and learn that game, and I swear you will drink for free for at least a few hours, right?
Yeah, and that's what we did. We put in I think we put in like $5-10 each, and we were making 25-cent bets.
Yeah. In 4 rounds. 4 rounds. So 8 beers, right? And these are like $11 beers. This is a total not related to Best in the Desert. Yeah. But $11 a piece for beers, and you're like, oh shit, that's like $100. Not when you're gambling, apparently. And you're not. It's not like you're making $100 gambling. you're just gambling. Like it was $5 we paid for, like we got comp those rounds, and then the $11 that we did win, we tipped the bartender.
Yeah, so it was $5 a drink for, you know, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. I don't know.
We are going to segue into the future of G&N Racing. For us, it's a legitimate team. For Honda, Kawasaki, KTM, we're nothing yet, right? But we enjoy what we're doing. He enjoys racing. I enjoy working on stuff. We're going to continue as long as we have the capability of doing it, and as we see it, we're able to be somewhat competitive in an open amateur class.
Yeah. With
2 people. Very little is needed. You just need a little bit of grit, I think. Well, on his part, he needs the grit. I've got to be able to sit there and be patient for him to come into the pits so I can fix something. But yeah, the future of G&N Racing, it's still going to be Ben and I. We are going to try to hit every race every month.
Yep.
So we're replacing the California race with the Mint 400 in Nevada. Pretty historical race. We'll be putting some videos out about that. This coming week, we are going to be getting a trailer.
So it's currently Saturday.
Yeah.
So Monday we'll be going to a dealership here in the local area that we live in. And, you know, we've explained our situation and who we are and what we're doing, and we were able to work a deal through the dealer. And yeah, so hopefully we'll secure
It's not a sponsorship thing. This is like
yeah.
We wanted a trailer so we could actually use it for a mobile house. We're going to be camping out of it. We're going to be working on the bike out of it. It's basically going to be our pit shed. But in the long run, doing a race per month, it just works out that it's cheaper to have a trailer to be able to camp in it, in the pits, and have all of our stuff there. We know it's secure, we can lock it up, and we're just gonna go that route. Like it might not be for everybody, different strokes for different folks, but that's what we're gonna do.
And every race that we go to, mostly we'll camp if we have the ability to. There's some that just don't have. There's going to be races later this year that's just not going to be feasible. We're going to be so far away from public utilities. The camping, you know, Best in the Desert is an amazing series. They provide bathrooms and stuff like that. We're just not going to be able to shower. We're not going to be able to use the bathrooms and stuff like that. So we'll hop in the trailer, get a few, you know, get a night of shut eye, and then continue to get the tech and registration and stuff like that. So it's a asset for us. And you know, hotels get expensive. So not every single race is sponsored by a hotel. Luckily, the next couple of races are sponsored by hotels. So we do get, you know, being a registrant in, that's not a word. There's no way that's a word. Being a participant in the race.
Yeah.
Being
So you can register as a volunteer or racer. You know?
I guess being a participant or a team in the race, we get discounts through hotels. So we will be.
Yeah, they do have deals with the local hotels. So in Laughlin,
and this is
Nevada,
not like the Windorf Astoria.
Yeah, this is like the Tropicana. This is like old school, like older hotels, but like, you know, instead of $150 a night for like a normal hotel, even like the Quality Inn in you know, a normal city, $100 a night or something like that. We're paying $45, $55, something like that. So it's accessible. You don't have to do it that way. You know,
it's free to camp. It's absolutely free to camp, but you know, we get a shower, we get, you know, beds. You know, I slept on the ground enough growing up. In the last 10 years of my life, I've slept on the ground enough. I don't need to sleep on the ground if I don't have to. So, but the thing is, so the trailer is going to allow us to lock up. You know, there's a lot of, you know, we've spent some coin, you know, getting tools, you know,
parts. Oh my gosh.
You know, we are blessed to have the ability to get that stuff. But I mean, these bikes, I mean, you can Google how much this bike cost. I mean, again, it's not the most expensive bike, but it's not something I want to get stolen out of the back of the truck. I would be very devastated.
You know, that's something good to say is whatever you have personally, whatever you own, it's yours. Nobody wants to get their shit stolen. Nobody wants anything taken from them. Everything is valuable to someone. So if you can protect your valuables, why not, right? Like, do it. And
that's what a trailer is going to allow us to do. So one, it kind of helps us
peace of mind.
Peace of mind.
Peace of mind is the big one there. with all of that being said, our next races are going to be the UTV Race of Champions in Laughlin, Nevada, the 17th through the 20th. The actual race is the 19th. So, 17th is our travel day. The 18th is our registration and tech day. And the 20th is another travel day. But the race is the 19th for motorcycles and quads and UTVs. That's going to be an interesting race. It is a shorter format, so we'll have some laps. And then next month in March, we've got March 9th through the 13th. The 9th and the 13th are our travel days. The 10th is the parade in Las Vegas. And this is all for the Mint 400. These are the next 2 races we're going to be going to. Hopefully nothing happens that prevents us from going, but we're registered for the UTV Race of Champions. Mm-hmm. We will be registered for the Mint 400. Mm-hmm. And if you guys want to see some coverage of that, of either of those races, and would like to follow our progress here at G&N Racing, please, subscribe, comment.
All of the races are broadcast in some type of forum or another. So
if you guys are enjoying the content, like I said before, subscribe, give us a like, and turn on those notifications for more coverage of what we're doing and where we're going to go with this racing. So I'm Cody, this is Ben, and we'll catch you all later.
See ya.